My name is Romaissaa, and I'm a Gallatin senior studying Middle Eastern Studies, Sociology, and Writing. Given my academic interests and the fact that I'm a freelance writer, it made a lot of sense for me to work with PEN this summer. PEN is a literary nonprofit organization with over 100 centers around the world. You all might be more familiar with PEN America and the location here in New York, and they are very preoccupied with the freedom of expression. The strapline that unites all of their centers is pretty straightforward, and you could see it here: freedom to write, freedom to read. PEN was founded after World War I in 1921, and it's a really interesting organization because it fights for something seemingly apolitical, free, borderless access to literature and other forms of written art in a world that is highly political and not at all conducive to that sort of thing. You can see this apolitical political tension in the work that they do and in the PEN International Charter online. It is a tension that I definitely felt during my time with them this summer. This summer, I decided to work with PEN's founding center. This took me to central London, and specifically to 60 Farringdon Road, and specifically to Kat Lucas, who ran the Writers at Risk program. I worked most closely with her, and she is absolutely remarkable, a powerhouse. During my last day, I asked her to move back to New York with me so we could hang out, but she declined in that distinctively polite British way. I digress. The Writers at Risk program, as the name may suggest, supports writers internationally who have been killed, imprisoned, deported, or otherwise persecuted for exercising their freedom of expression. The program is in part reactionary, holding vigils and protests to bring attention to certain events, and you can see some of them on the screen behind me. I participated in one of the protests outside of the Saudi embassy, and there was a hilarious moment in which a man across the street started photographing us. The English PEN people kind of good-naturedly waved at him, and when I asked if they knew him, they said no, he's just the guy that Saudi Arabia sends to photograph all their embassy protesters. That moment really stuck with me because if the Saudi government is devoting resources to identifying the maybe 5 people that show up on a Friday afternoon to protest, say, Ahmed Mansour, the protesters must be doing something right. I think about that a lot nowadays when I see little protests around the city, and especially here in Washington Square Park, because somebody is always watching. The bulk of the work I helped them with was social media related, campaigning for the release of certain writers, encouraging the public to write letters to them, reminding everybody of their arrest anniversaries so they don't fade into social media oblivion as fast. In this way, Writers at Risk is very reliant on public sympathy, and it was sometimes really disheartening to see limited engagement with their campaigns. I suspect part of the reason behind this is because the activist world seems so overwhelming at times. Somebody is always being imprisoned or killed or something else that's really depressing. Today, I'd like to suggest keeping up with just one case as a starting place. Follow English PEN on Twitter, seeing as though Facebook is obsolete and uncool, to keep up with their work. It's a really easy way to keep track of some of these writers who so easily fall into the cracks. For more information on the rest of the things I did with English PEN, you can read my blog posts on the Gallatin website, but for the rest of the presentation, I'd like to focus on just 2 cases I worked on this summer. The first is the case of Galal al-Bahiri, an Egyptian poet currently serving a 3-year sentence for a song he helped write, as well as a book of poetry that was interpreted as being anti-regime. The second is the case of Dr. Abdul Jalil al-Singais, a Bahraini engineer, human rights activist, and father who has been in jail for the past 9 years for peaceful protests. I spent a lot of time this summer writing articles about each of these writers, interviewing people who worked with them or who were close with them in the process. It was definitely the most meaningful work I did, and you can read the articles on English PEN's website, and in the case of the Bahiri article on Arab Lit, which picked it up soon after. I'd like to continue on a more positive note. It's been an interesting month for freedom of speech. Doreen Tatour, a Palestinian poet who was imprisoned for house arrest and imprisoned for 4 years by the Israeli government for a poem she posted on Facebook, was finally released in a major victory. Jamal Khashoggi, the slain Saudi journalist, is far from falling into irrelevance, with The Guardian and The Times running articles about him last week, and The Salon writing an article about him 9 hours ago. So not to say that there is some sort of shift, but it's not all bad all the time, and it's important to recognize that in our recent news. I would also like to share, depending on the time we have, um, one or two poems by Galal al-Bahiri. So his poetry really resonated with me. He would send us, as in like English pen, his poems from prison, and so they would be translated from the Arabic to English, and sometimes he helped translate them, and they would be online on the website, and they were really, really amazing. So the first one is a letter from Torah prison. I can read it and you guys can follow. You, something in the heart, unspoken, something in the throat, the last wish of a man on the gallows. When the hour of hanging comes, the great need for oblivion. You, prison and death, free of charge. You, the truest meaning of man, the word no. I kiss your hand and, preparing for the trial, put on a suit and pray for your Eid to come. I'm the one who is escaped from the Mamluks. I'm the child whose father's name is Sahran, and I swim in your name. And I swim in your name, addiction. I'm the company of outlawed poets. Oh, my oblivion, I'm the clay that precedes the law of concrete. In the heart of this night, I own nothing but my smile. I take my country in my arms and talk to her about all the prisoners' lives out there beyond the prison's borders, beyond the jailer's grasp, and about man's need for his fellow man, about a dream that was licit and possible, about a burden that could be borne if everyone took part in it. I laugh at a song they call criminal, which provoked them to erect 100 barricades. On our account, they block out the sun and the thoughts in the head. They want to hide the past behind locks and bolts, preventing him from whispering about how things once were. They want to hide him by appointing guards, weak-minded foreigners estranged from the people. But what wonder is this? His fate is written in all the prison cells. His cell has neither bricks nor steel, and he was not defeated within it. Outside, a squadron of slaves. Inside, a crucified Messiah. The thorns above his brow are witnesses. You betrayed his revolution with your own hands. With shame in your eyes, you are the Judases of the past, whatever your religion, whatever minuscule vision you have. We've come back, and we see you. You who imprisoned the light, that naked groaning. The light doesn't care how tall the fence is. It's not hemmed in by steel bars or officers' uniforms. It cannot be forgotten. You can take a public square away from us, but there are thousands and thousands of others, and I'll be there, waiting for you. Our land will not betray us. With each olive branch we're weaving your shrouds. And the young man you killed has come back, awake now and angry. He's got a bone to pick with his killer. He's got a bone to pick with the one who betrayed him, the one who, on that night of hope, acquiesced, fell silent, and slept. His wound has healed. He's come back, a knight without a bridle. He's setting up the trial while an imam prays among us and illumines the one who was blind. He's rolling up his sleeves, preparing for a fight. He was killed, yes, it's true, and yet he has his role in this epic. He stands there now and holds his ground. We've returned to call on God and proclaim it. We've come back, hand in hand. Again, we proclaim it. We've come back and we vow to spread the light, the new dawn, the keen-sighted conscience. We've come back and we can smell the fear in your veins, and our cheers tonight are the sweetest of all. We are not afraid. We are not afraid. We saw a country rise from sleep to trample a pharaoh and cleanse the age of the cane and cudgel. We saw a country sing. There were no slave songs, no harbingers of doom, rather songs fitting for a new kind of steel. We saw it. We saw a country where no one is oppressed. That is his first prison poem. Super powerful. At times you can see when he's talking about the regime, when he's talking about Cairo Square, when he's talking about different things. I really suggest that you check out the rest of his poetry because it's incredible, and support English Pen on Twitter and elsewhere. Thank you so much.